Don't you dare hand your pain over to a man who hasn't proven he can hold it without dropping you. A woman's deepest wounds, the ones she hides behind her smile, the ones she cries over when the world goes quiet, those are not for display, not for entertainment, not for shallow curiosity. You don't owe anyone, especially a man, front row access to your private heartbreak just because he asks for it sweetly. Just because he holds your hand doesn't mean he's ready to hold your story. And just because he kisses your lips doesn't mean he's earned the right to know what broke your heart. There is power in restraint. There is wisdom in waiting. You've got to protect the parts of you that still bleed. You've got to know when someone is standing beside you to comfort you, and when they're just standing close enough to get a good look at your pain and call it intimacy. That's not intimacy, that's exposure without safety, that's emotional robbery, and you're not here to bleed out for someone who hasn't even offered a single clean bandage. The truth is, when a woman loves, she often loves with open wounds and open arms. She tells the man her past, her failures, her fears, her dreams, all hoping that her honesty will build something deeper. But here's what they don't tell you. Honesty is not always safe. Some men are not builders, they're collectors. They collect your weaknesses. They memorize the moments you cried, the times you said you weren't enough, and they store that away like ammunition. Not because they're evil, but because they haven't done the work to honor someone else's vulnerability. And a woman who gives too much, too fast, too raw, ends up becoming emotionally naked in front of someone who was only undressing her body, not her soul. That's why you have to hide your pain, not in fear, but in power. You hide it until he proves he can hold your silence without asking for a performance. Until he proves he doesn't need to see you shatter to believe you've been through hell. You hide your ache until he stops romanticizing your struggle and starts respecting your survival. There's a false narrative out there that says if you want to love deeply, you have to reveal everything early. That vulnerability equals openness without caution, but that's a lie. Vulnerability is sacred. It's not a tactic. It's not a test, and it's not something you throw on the table like a resume. You're not auditioning for sympathy. You're not performing your trauma to win a man's approval. Your wounds are not a part of your charm. They're proof of your war, and wars don't get retold to strangers who just arrived on the battlefield. Let him earn your scars. Let him earn your silence. Let him sit in the space where you say nothing and still feel everything, and see how he responds. Because the right man won't rush to fix what he doesn't understand. He won't ask you to relive your trauma just to prove you're real. He'll honor the parts you don't say. He'll read between the pauses. He'll sense the tremble behind your strength. And he'll never demand that you fall apart just so he can feel like a hero. You don't need a hero. You need a witness. You need someone who can sit beside you in stillness and not get uncomfortable by your quiet. That's the test. Can he handle your silence? Can he stay when you're not entertaining, not laughing, not pouring out every emotion like a script he gets to study? A man who deserves your pain will never ask for it casually. He won't demand to know what happened to you in your past without first building a foundation of trust in the present. He'll create a space so secure, so still, so safe that your pain will rise on its own, not as a confession, but as a release. Not because you were pressured, but because you finally felt seen without being picked apart. That's how you know it's real. When you reveal your wounds not because you had to, but because your soul whispered, he can handle it. Anything less than that is a betrayal to yourself. Women are constantly told to be real with men, but no one tells you how much of that realness gets misused, misunderstood, and manipulated. You tell him your ex abandoned you, and suddenly every time you need reassurance, he says you're too needy. You tell him your father never showed up, and now he throws your trust issues in your face when you ask where he's been. That is the danger of revealing your hurt to the wrong man. It doesn't make him love you more. It gives him a roadmap to where your cracks are. And if he's not healed himself, if he's not emotionally grounded, he will step on those cracks like landmines and act surprised when you explode. That's why you must protect your hurt like sacred ground, not because you're broken, but because not everyone is worthy of walking through your ruins. You are allowed to be strong and private. You are allowed to say, "I've been through a lot," and leave it at that. You are allowed to take your time. You are allowed to wait until his actions, not his words, prove he's a safe space. Don't confuse chemistry with character. Don't confuse attention with intention. And don't confuse a man's curiosity with compassion. Just because he wants to know everything doesn't mean he wants to understand everything. Understanding is shown in patience, in presence, in how he shows up when you don't have the energy to explain what's wrong, in how he listens to your silence without needing to interrogate it. So if you're hurting, heal quietly, powerfully, without putting it all on display. Let your soul be your sanctuary. Let your healing be your revolution. Let your pain be something you honor in private until someone comes along who sees the weight in your eyes and doesn't demand a breakdown to believe it's real. The woman you're becoming will thank you, because she'll know her story was never meant to be told to just anyone. It was meant to be held by someone who didn't ask for your pain, but chose to stay when he finally saw it. Don't give a man all your love just to prove you're capable of it. That's not love. That's emotional desperation disguised as devotion. And no, that doesn't make you weak. It makes you real, it makes you human, but it also makes you dangerously vulnerable to men who don't deserve to see the full capacity of your heart. You don't flood a man with your everything until you've seen what he does when you give him almost nothing. Until you've watched how he treats your boundaries, your distance, your silence, your pauses. Some women give all their love up front like a gift, hoping it'll soften a man, change him, mold him into someone who will finally stay. But that's the trap, that's the lie, because if he doesn't respect you at 20%, he'll never cherish you at 100%. If he doesn't chase your energy when you're not giving it all, he'll never value it when you hand it to him wrapped in gold. You've got to understand this. A woman's love is not cheap. It's not supposed to be available on day one. It's not something you give like a sample in a store, hoping he'll buy the full version later. Your love is currency. And too many women are spending their emotional fortune on men who haven't earned a dime. They give and give and give until there's nothing left but emptiness and resentment. And then they wonder why he walked away. He walked away because he never saw what it cost you, because you gave him the palace before he ever built the foundation. You handed him your soul when he hadn't even offered you consistency. You made it easy, too easy, and real love, real lasting love, is not easy. It's tested, it's earned, it's witnessed in the quiet sacrifices, the subtle efforts, the moments when you choose to stay grounded in your worth rather than collapsing into your need to be loved. You need to pull back, not out of fear, but out of power. You need to observe, because how a man behaves when you're not bending over backwards for him, that's who he really is. If he only shows up when you're available, when you're affectionate, when you're overcompensating, that's not love. That's convenience. That's emotional laziness on his part and overfunctioning on yours. You want a partner, not a dependent. You want a man who meets you at your level, not one who drags you down into cycles of proving, chasing, begging, fixing. A real man doesn't need to be shown how to love. He feels it in your absence. He realizes your value not when you explain it, but when he senses the difference between a world with you and one without. Let me say this loud and clear for every woman who has ever been told she's too much. Your love is a blessing. Your loyalty is a force. Your emotional depth is not a burden. It's a miracle. But it becomes a curse when you give it to the wrong man. When you love prematurely, when you reveal too much, when you pour from your deepest well and he drinks from it like it costs him nothing, that's when love starts to hurt. Not because love itself is painful, but because loving without discernment is like throwing pearls to someone who only wanted a shiny rock. Stop doing that. Stop confusing emotional intensity with emotional intelligence. A man can be passionate and still careless. He can say all the right words and still lack the maturity to receive your love with honor. You have to stop rewarding inconsistency with deeper affection. Stop treating breadcrumbs like a banquet. Stop thinking that if you just show him how amazing your love is, he'll change. That's not your job. You're not his mother. You're not his therapist. And you're not his savior. You are a woman with fire in your soul and storms in your silence. Your love is not rehab. Your heart is not a halfway house for broken men who refuse to heal. Let him rise to meet you. Let him show you he can give too. Let him prove he deserves the full weight of your heart by how he responds when he only has a piece of it. Can he nurture what little you offer? Can he respect the space you create? Can he love you without needing to control you? A man who truly values a woman doesn't wait for her to go all in. He shows up before the grand gestures. He makes an effort when there's no prize dangling in front of him. He doesn't need your constant availability to feel connected. He feels you even in your absence. He hears you even in your quiet. And he doesn't panic when you pull back, because he knows that real connection doesn't require constant performance. It just requires presence, respect, patience. So start small, give a little, watch a lot. Observe how he handles your boundaries. Does he respect them or try to break them? Observe how he responds to your silence. Does he lean in or disappear? Observe how he treats your no. Does he honor it or guilt you into changing your mind? These are not little tests. These are vital revelations. Because if a man can't handle the version of you that's holding back, he's not ready for the woman who gives her all. And when you do give it to someone who's already shown you he's not going anywhere. Someone who's earned it through consistency, not charm, through actions, not empty words, through patience, not pressure. You are not hard to love. You've just been loving in the wrong direction. You've been giving full access to men who never even held the key to themselves. You've been writing love letters to people who can't read emotional depth. You've been showing up in your fullest form to people who only deserved a glimpse, and it's time to stop. Not because you've lost faith in love, but because you've finally gained faith in yourself. Faith that your love doesn't need to be proven, only protected. Faith that the right man will see the power of your restraint and not resent it. He'll respect it. He'll feel honored just to be trusted with a part of you. And when that happens, you'll know this is someone who can handle the whole truth of you, not just the parts you put on display. A woman's emotional intelligence is her sharpest weapon and her softest shield, and that's exactly why she must hide it from a man who hasn't yet shown emotional maturity of his own. Don't let your gift become your burden. Don't let your deep understanding of people turn into a constant job of explaining, fixing, translating, and absorbing. Too many women are trapped in emotional one-way streets where she's the therapist, the interpreter, the peacemaker, the mother, and the emotional punching bag. All because she knows how to read between the lines. All because she's self-aware. All because she sees patterns and hears what's not being said. But just because you can handle more doesn't mean you should . Don't let your capacity become your curse. Some men will lean on your emotional depth so they never have to develop their own, and they won't even realize they're doing it because it's so easy for you to fill the silence. To explain what they meant, to forgive before they apologize, to make sense of their confusion before they've even tried to name it. And suddenly, you're not just loving them, you're carrying them, you're doing the heavy lifting for two hearts while pretending it's love. That's not love, that's emotional labor disguised as devotion. You can't build a relationship where you're the only one doing the inner work. You can't be the one constantly reflecting, growing, adjusting, self-regulating, and then still have to teach someone else how to meet you there. That's not a partnership, that's emotional babysitting. You are not responsible for teaching a man how to feel. You are not his emotional GPS. Stop letting your empathy become his excuse. Stop letting your wisdom become his shield from growth. When you love someone too deeply too soon, when you show all your awareness, all your insight, all your patience before he's shown any real effort to grow, you become the crutch. You become the bandage. You become the answer before he's even asked the right questions. That's how you lose yourself. That's how you become the strong woman who's silently exhausted, the healer who's bleeding inside, the fixer who ends up broken. And it doesn't happen all at once. It happens slowly, every time you explain why he's distant, every time you absorb his silence as your fault. Every time you justify his coldness with he's going through something. You see the wounds, you know where they came from, so you make excuses. You call it compassion, but let's call it what it really is. Overfunctioning, and it's killing your spirit. You have to let him meet you in the emotional space. You have to stop filling in all the gaps with your intuition. Let him get uncomfortable. Let him sit in confusion. Let him struggle to express himself. That's how growth happens. You don't grow a man by doing the talking for him. You don't teach maturity by mothering someone's emotions. You set the boundary. You say, I know what you're feeling, but I'm not going to explain it for you. You say, I understand your silence, but I won't carry the weight of what you won't say. You let him rise to meet you or fall by his own avoidance. Because if you keep showing up as the emotionally fluent one, while he refuses to even learn the language, you're setting yourself up for resentment and imbalance. And that kind of love feels like drowning quietly while smiling loudly. There's nothing wrong with being emotionally intelligent. It's your superpower, but like any power, it has to be protected. You can't walk into every relationship with your insight on full display, hoping it will earn you love. Some men are drawn to that strength because it makes them feel safe, but safety without effort becomes entitlement. He starts to expect you to hold space, to translate moods, to stay calm when he lashes out, to understand him when he won't even take the time to understand himself. You deserve better. You deserve a man who meets you where you are, not one who expects you to come down and carry him up. Emotional intimacy is a two-way street. It's not you reading his mind and forgiving his past before he even brings it up. It's not you solving the puzzle and handing him the picture. It's him learning how to show up fully, vulnerably, messily. And if he's not willing to do that, no amount of your insight will make him the right partner. Stop shrinking your needs just because you can understand his. Stop calling it love when it's really emotional compensation. You're not here to be a savior. You're here to be loved back in full, not in fragments. And the truth is, if a man hasn't done the emotional work, he won't know what to do with a woman who has. He'll either lean on her until she collapses or leave her, because her depth makes him feel exposed. That's why you have to hide your emotional intelligence until you see what he does with his own mess. Does he take ownership? Does he reflect? Does he say, I need to think about that? Or does he deflect, blame, shut down? Watch closely, because how he handles discomfort tells you everything about how he'll handle you when you're not at your best. And if he can't be with himself in the mirror, he won't be able to sit beside you when you're spiraling. He'll leave you hanging in your hardest moments, then come back when you've fixed yourself. That's not love. That's convenience with a side of cowardice. A relationship is not therapy. You're not there to coach him into adulthood. You're there to co-create something grounded in mutual understanding, and if you have to sacrifice your emotional peace just to keep him close, you're already alone. You need to protect your emotional clarity like it's gold, because it is, and not everyone deserves to witness it. Not everyone is ready to receive a woman who knows herself that deeply. You don't need to water down your wisdom, but you do need to guard it. Let him show you he can sit with discomfort before you teach him how to breathe through it. Let him show you he can reflect on his own before you hand him the mirror. Let him sit in silence without you rushing to break it, just because you can feel what he's feeling. That's the test, and when he fails it, don't blame yourself. You're not too much. You're just finally not doing too little to accommodate someone else's lack. A woman's emotional intelligence is sacred ground, not a playground for boys pretending to be men. You've worked hard to know yourself. You've broken, healed, grown, and risen, and that evolution came at a price. Don't discount it by offering emotional luxury to someone who still thinks avoidance is strength. The right man won't need you to be his guide. He'll walk beside you. He won't need you to translate his silence. He'll find the words. And when that day comes, your wisdom will be received the way it was always meant to be. Not as a lifeline to save someone, but as a